Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you have a fantastic day. Today, we are going to be reacting to Necrit explaining about the Black Rose. Now, I don't know a lot about the Black Rose, so I'm very curious about this video. I know there's a lot of Necrit's video I still need to react to. And if you have any recommendations, put them down below in the comments. But yeah, I'm very curious about what exactly the Black Rose is. Like I said, I know a little bit about it, but not a lot. So yeah, let's go. Oh yeah, if you haven't watched Arcane Season 2, I wouldn't recommend watching this. It probably contains a lot of spoilers. I've already watched it and been devastated by it, so I'm not too afraid of watching this one. So, but if you haven't watched it, don't watch it yet. Alright, let's go.
While Arcane is generally seen as great, there were some points in the story where people stopped to think, the heck is that about?
Yes.
After which, if you finish the series, you are left thinking, the heck was that about? That's right, we are talking about the Black Rose. The one thing in Arcane which many people believe was pointless. All the while, it is a really cool reference and a setup to anyone who knows how deep League's lore is. And so today,
I'm still learning about League of Legends lore, and I still haven't... there's so much stuff I don't know, and I've been reacting to these videos for like 2 years now, trying to learn about the lore, and there's so much I don't know. Like, I know about the Black Rose, and I know that's Noxus and LeBlanc and Vladimir. I know that it's that kind of stuff, but I don't actually know what it is yet. Necrit's gonna tell me.
Today, in this video, we are fixing that for everyone. Because as it turns out, the Black Rose have a massive influence over the entire universe. And despite their appearance in Arcane confusing a lot of people, I can assure you it all makes perfect sense with the right context. And so, without further ado, let's explain who the Black Rose are, what they do, and what is the likely reason they appeared in Arcane. In order to explain the Rose, we first briefly have to explain Noxus. In the present days, Noxus is an empire that is technically led by 3 people. This was done to prevent possible corruption, with the current leaders being Darius, Swain, and a mysterious figure nobody knows much about. But while these 3 are ruling over Noxus, at the same time, there is a hidden cabal, which is incredibly powerful, which is secretly trying to wrestle the power from the rulers and use it for a lot of shady stuff, as well as corruption. With the twist being that they are technically doing it all for a noble reason. And of course, this cabal is known as the Black Rose. Its story started a very long time ago, about 1400 years before the events of Arcane, during an event known as the Reign of the Iron Revenant. During this time, Valoran, which is the continent just north of Piltover and Zaun, which is where Arcane happened, was mostly covered by primitive barbarian tribes. And yet, during these times, there were already whispers of a powerful pale witch, whom, in League of Legends, we know as LeBlanc. A master of illusions who has the ability to spread her clones around the world, who also just likes to act from the shadows. And for now, that's exactly what she did.
She's so creepy.
Most people, she was but a myth. So instead, as the barbarian tribes fought for dominance over the entire continent, there was one warlord who rose above the rest. A barbarian known as Sun Uzal. Sun Uzal was a brutal conqueror for one simple reason. He believed that after death, all the killing and conquering would earn him a seat at the god's table.
Mordekaiser? Sun Uzal sounds so familiar to me. Oh my gosh. I know this story.
And so he conquered for the glory of the gods until he died. But when he died, instead of the Hall of Bones, he found himself in an empty wasteland, with an occasional lost soul drifting by. This made Sun Uzal quite angry, because it meant his faith was false. There were no gods of the afterlife, and there were no halls of bones. Everything he did was for nothing. But as all the other lesser spirits eventually faded, lost to time, Sun Uzal refused to fade. being quite literally too angry to die. His rage and torment held his spirit together, and over time he started understanding the faint whispers around him. He learned it was Oknun, the language exclusively spoken by the dead, which gave him the opportunity to form a new plan. Using this language, San Uzal whispered temptations into the realms outside, promising power to anyone who would listen. And sure enough, eventually there was a group of sorcerers who heard his whispering, and they promised to bring back San Uzal in exchange for his power. Lacking flesh or bones, San Uzal told the sorcerers
put him
to
in
make
armor,
him more powerful than any mortal, by binding his soul to metal plates that resembled his old armor. And so, San Uzal rose again, this time as a hulking revenant of iron and hate. Of course, needing a weapon for his conquest. San Uzal looked towards the power-hungry mages who resurrected him, and instead of blessing them with his power, he killed them all with his bare hands. And he forged their souls into a massive mace known as Nightfall. The mages tried to scream out his name to banish him, because in League's universe, knowing someone's real name allows you to do some magical stuff with them. But this time, it was no use, because San Uzal was no more. Now, his true name was spoken in Oknun. It was Mordekaiser.
I knew it.
So,
Okay,
Mordekaiser's second conquest of the world began.
I really love the way his armor looks.
The continent, to everyone else, it really seemed like he only cared about massacre and destruction. He didn't care about controlling territory or ruling the world. Now, it seemed like he only cared about wiping it out. And of course, Mordekaiser had his motivations for this, which would be revealed later. First, to kickstart his reign as the Emperor
I think I know what it is.
Mordekaiser raised the Immortal Bastion at the center of his empire. Now, from the pictures, this bastion may not look that big. But in reality, in this universe, this is the biggest building that was ever constructed. At least that's how Noxians describe it. Maybe it is on par with something like the Sun Disk. Anyway, the common folk always assumed that this was just a seat of power. But in reality, Mordekaiser used it to hide secrets. He hungered for knowledge of spirits and death, and the true understanding of a realm or multiple realms beyond. This meant that Mordekaiser used the Immortal Bastion as a massive treasury to hoard artifacts, tomes, or even spirits, all of which would be hidden underneath the bastion. As an example, this is where Mordekaiser tortured Veigar, a Yordle who once used to be a happy fellow,
but
then he broke him for the knowledge of Yordle magic, and eventually Mordekaiser even acquired two powerful beasts which he used to conquer the world. He had the fiery demon known as Tybulk, which could set ablaze entire cities, and a shadowy monster known as Atakan, the bringer of ruin. With all of this accumulated power, Mordekaiser became unstoppable. In fact, it made the entire rest of the continent filled with the Noxai tribes to band together against him. But as was soon apparent, even that wasn't enough. However, thankfully, the entire time, someone was watching Mordekaiser's story from the shadows.
LeBlanc.
Because the entire time, the pale sorceress of the old legends, LeBlanc, was secretly among Mordekaiser's closest advisors. She saw how he was slowly destroying the world, and so she had a plan to stop him from within. A plan that required a powerful alliance to stop Mordekaiser forever. But for this, we have to go back in time before the point where San Uzal became a living warlord. Here we get to an event known as the Great Darkin War. This is a very long and quite complex story, but don't worry, we don't need all the details. Just know that during these
This is one of the most interesting stories I've heard.
events, there was a race of demigods known as the Darkin who were scattered across the entire world, who lost their leader, and so now they were fighting for dominance using blood magic, meaning that they could reshape their bodies into whatever they deemed powerful. oftentimes turning themselves into hulking bloody titans.
Mm-hmm.
And well, once upon a time, as the world was being ravaged by the Darkin, very far away there was another continent called Kamavor, which was mostly controlled by a feared holy kingdom. But even this kingdom was afraid of what the Darkin were capable of. And so, to keep the monsters away from their continent, the kingdom of Kamavor traded Prince Vladimir to the Darkin as a hostage. It turns out, Vladimir had quite the talent for arcane magic, and so believing himself to be absolutely above a mere mortal, and therefore worthy of the blood-transmuting power, for their amusement, the Darkin allowed Vladimir to study this terrifying magic. And soon enough, Vladimir became the first ever mortal to master hemomancy, after which the Darkin would allow him to use it to enforce their will on lesser beings. Now, skipping forward quite a bit, eventually through the interference of celestial beings, the Darkin were banished away. They were sealed inside weapons and scattered across the world, leaving behind just a cataclysmically ravaged world. And directly after that is when the barbarian tribes rise, which is when San Uzal's story happens, where he is resurrected as Mordekaiser. Well, you see, as Mordekaiser, as an undead warlord, was now conquering the world again, along the eastern coasts of Valoran, stories of a bloodthirsty fiend demanding sacrifices and worship spread around.
The lore and the timeline and everything is so amazing. I'm so excited for when they do release an MMO, because it's gonna be really, really in depth and just really good. I can't wait. Every time I hear about the timeline and the lore, it just gets me more excited.
Fiend turned out to be Vladimir, who united some of the local tribes in his worship.
I really like his nails, or swords, or whatever they are.
Until the moment
they look cool.
His lair was approached by a certain pale sorceress. That night, the two feasted as equals. They weaved magic so dark the wine at the table soured, and roses withered, turning from vibrant red to black. And thus began the pact between Vladimir, the first ever hemomancer, and LeBlanc, the Witch of Legends, who still has a mysterious origin. We don't know much about that. But together, these powerful mages would play games of politics and war across Valoran, in a newly established cabal that became known as the Black Rose. But first, there was a threat they had to deal with. So, at the peak of Mordekaiser's reign, after allying with the tribe that Vladimir brought together, secretly, LeBlanc helped the entire continent to band together and strike at Mordekaiser's empire. With this distraction, using her position as his advisor,
that's a cool picture.
LeBlanc betrayed Mordekaiser and she severed his soul from his armor, after which she sealed the empty iron shell underneath the Immortal Bastion, casting Mordekaiser out of the material realm again. But while at first look this seemed to be a flawless victory, it all led to Mordekaiser's ultimate plan. You see, the reason why during Mordekaiser's second reign he only massacred and destroyed was because he wanted to kill as many mortals as possible, so he could funnel all the dead souls into his previously empty realm, which was now known as Mit-Narak-Nun. And after LeBlanc banished him back into his realm,
I'm not gonna remember that.
The endless ocean of souls he brought here. And so, of course, he immediately started forging the worthy into powerful warriors, while the lesser souls were just turned into bricks, which would be used to build a new...
He turned the ghost and stuff into bricks and built his empire and stuff. It's really crazy.
Undead empire. This continued for over 1,000 years. But now, in the present days, with a cool event where Mordekaiser shattered his own throne because he was done sitting down, he was also done building his own kingdom. And he was ready to burst out into the material realm again. And since he was banished in Noxus, it would happen right in the middle of the Immortal Bastion. And this is technically why LeBlanc started the Black Rose. She needed an alliance of powerful mages who would help her to keep Mordekaiser away. Preferably without the rest of the world knowing
Okay,
about
I didn't
it,
know that.
because sooner or later there is a chance someone would get tempted by Mordekaiser's whispers. That's why, even though Mordekaiser is banished underneath the Immortal Bastion, the current leadership doesn't know about it. This is all by LeBlanc's design, so she can protect the world from the Emperor of Death. But soon, all of this reached another turn, since LeBlanc very quickly figured out what Mordekaiser was doing in his realm. So now her goal was not just to keep him banished. She knew that eventually he would get out. And so she started preparing the Black Rose for the inevitable battle with Mordekaiser. As a result, they started doing the most questionable things in search for power. However, outside of this hidden cabal acting underneath the bastion, the outside world evolved too. You see, after Mordekaiser was defeated, the Noxide tribes built a new empire around the Immortal Bastion. This became the empire known as the Noxian Empire. And it was completely oblivious to all the dark power underneath it, as this empire cycled through different rulers over the centuries. Below them, the Black Rose continues to acquire as much power as possible. For example, over the years, more and more powerful dark mages joined them. This includes Lady Elise, the mistress of House Kythera, who got poisoned by her husband during the endless political games in Noxus, and who survived with LeBlanc's help, because she got introduced to Vilemaw, the spider god of the Shadow Isles, who transformed her into a spider-like creature using the venom in her body. Now, at the same time, Lord Vladimir also got a lot of story of his own. It turns out being immortal also has a pretty funny downside. You may live forever to experience a lot of things, but your brain doesn't get any bigger, so you will start forgetting things. Which is why Vladimir is constantly forgetting what happened before, and this is why every few centuries, he gets a painter to paint a portrait of himself so he can remember what happened. Anyway, closer to the present days, Lord Vladimir started the Crimson Cult to recruit new talented mages, which would not only serve as blood offerings to prolong Vladimir's life, but eventually all of them would be also turned into weapons against Mordekaiser. Not only that, this spreading of hemomancy also led into the formation of the Grey Legion, an art that allowed Noxians to be resurrected as mindless, bloody zombies to fight for Noxus again. But it also allowed them to create entirely new blood golems using nothing but blood. But also, LeBlanc herself started hoarding interesting objects. First of all, she started teaching certain members of the Rose rune weaving. It was the art of using dark magic to put runes onto dark steel, shaping it into weapons which would nullify magic and which would also make the weapons indestructible. As an example, this is what happened to Riven's blade. Sure, it got shattered, but because it is indestructible, it keeps reforming itself. Also, technically, the magic nullifying is why she has a shield in the game. And yes, this rune weaving is also what we saw in Arcane. It's the same runes on the black steel which Ambassa had, hinting that when Arcane mentioned that Ambassa stole something from the Rose, perhaps she also took this art with her. But speaking of Riven, LeBlanc is also the one who started the Noxian invasion of Ionia. There is a story that hinted that she originally started this invasion because she was looking for something powerful in Ionia, which once again would mean that she might be doing this because of Mordekaiser. And she achieved this invasion by whispering into the ear of Borem Darkwill, who at the time was the leader of Noxus, and because he was aging, she told him that there was an artifact in Ionia that would make him immortal. But perhaps more importantly, considering the latest update that is coming to League of Legends. After LeBlanc defeated Mordekaiser, she sealed away the two beasts he was using to conquer the world. There was Atakan, who got banished to serve LeBlanc directly, and Tybulg, who got sealed inside a vial as a tiny droplet of fire. and the droplet would eventually be put into a child
Oh,
we know
no.
as Annie.
I didn't
That's
know
right.
that.
Tibers, the fiery bear she has, is actually a form of the demon that once served Mordekaiser. Speaking of which, the Black Rose does
Wow,
this a
interesting.
lot. They
I love
constantly
Annie's
look for
story.
young, talented children, and they put them into schools and training camps where they constantly fight each other to the death until they come out and they are turned into a living weapon. Examples of these children who became powerful against their own will with the help of the Black Rose are Riven,
Riven?
Talia, Annie, or
Annie?
even Rel. Rel especially is one that the Black Rose was proud of because she has the power to bend metals, with Mordekaiser being nothing but
Oh, she's the one that
which
has
is
like a
also why
metal
LeBlanc
hoof.
was really sad when Rel escaped the school. Anyway, we could also mention that the Black Rose is hiring mercenaries around the world to do special missions for them. For example, Samira's weaponry is entirely
Chef
funded by the Black
Samira.
Rose. But lastly, this
Male.
takes us to Arcane. See, now you may know that this organization is filled with dark mages, who are technically on a quest to stop the end of the world, but this may leave you asking, the heck did they do in Arcane? Well, it is simple. There are three big reasons why they were here. Hextech, Embessa, and Mel. First of all, Hextech is obviously...
Now, I'm very confused about what Mel has to do with the Black Rose. I know Embessa, she stole something. And Hextech is a, you know, it's probably they want to get their hands on it, but I'm very confused about Mel.
Very powerful. And so it makes sense that the Black Rose would be very interested in it. They could use it in their battle against Mordekaiser. But besides this, in this entire series, it was hinted that Embessa had some dark past dealing with the Black Rose. We learned that Embessa stole something from them, though what that was never revealed in Arcane, because Riot likely wants to save that for the Embessa book. I mean, they have to get people excited somehow.
Then, okay.
And it could be because that detail wasn't really important.
I'm gonna read
Arcane.
that book.
All we learned is that in retaliation, the Black Rose went after her son, so they killed Kino. And it was revealed that Embessa did something shady to infuse her child with a special power. And it turned out that child wasn't Kino, but Mel. With everything pointing at the fact that the power that Mel has now came from the Black Rose.
Wow, okay.
That could be what Embessa stole. Which brings us to the third reason why the Black Rose appeared in Arcane at all. And in fact, I believe this is the main reason why the Black Rose was here. It was all very likely a setup for what is going to happen in League of Legends. Throughout Arcane, the Black Rose, and specifically LeBlanc, which is this one mysterious figure, is the one who awakened Mel's power. And in the same way they turned all the talented kids into living weapons, LeBlanc was hoping they could recruit Mel into the Black Rose, after which Mel would also help them fight Mordekaiser.
Well, maybe she shouldn't have killed
for the purpose of
the
telling
son.
Arcane's story, this would be pointless, which is why I believe the entire Black Rose story arc was used to connect the show to the game. So that if you like the show, Riot could say, hey, we do have a game that is technically connected to it.
That makes sense.
Please play it before the MMO comes out.
I don't know if I want to play that game before the MMO. I think I'm very curious about the card game more than the actual game, because I like the card games and stuff. I think I'd get into that. So I'm actually going to look into the League of Legends card game. I'm looking into the League of Legends game, but it's so stressful and I'm going to be terrible at it, but it would be very interesting to play it at least once. Alright, so that was interesting. I mainly wanted to watch this to figure out what Mel had to do with the Black Rose, because after watching season 2 of Arcane, I was very confused and I just wanted answers. And I don't think I got answers, but that was okay. It's interesting. I always thought that her powers looked like the desert area, Surima. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I guess I'm wrong. Yeah, it reminds me of the desert area. I guess because it's golden. But yeah, very interesting, and I'm going to be reacting to more of Necrit's Arcane stuff now that I'm done with season 2 of Arcane. But yeah, if you have any recommendations, put them down below, and let me know what you thought about this. Alright guys, so that was my reaction to Necrit telling me about the Black Rose. If you want to watch it, the link's down there, go check it out. And if you're new, please like, subscribe, and the bell for notification. Thank you all so much for watching. You have a good day, a night, bye-bye.